my friends, and welcome to the Godfather Chronicles podcast. My name is Miguel Garcia, and I am your host. If you have value on the podcast, share it with your family and friends, and make sure you rate it. I've been real busy, and I'm taking time to try to help you guys, and I think that it is only fair that you return that favor by giving me a rating and sharing it with your friends. You can follow me on Instagram at MAGPatriot. On Facebook, I'm Miguel Godfather, or email me your questions at Miguel@Godfather Chronicles. This podcast is sponsored by naturalchoicecompany.com. Unlock your health. Please make sure you visit the website and check out the products. Again, naturalchoicecompany.com. My friends, it's been a couple of weeks since I recorded a podcast, but I am back at it. This is episode 25, and this is part 9 of the Godfather Success Essential series, and this is about putting knowledge into action. Execute with a sense of urgency. The last couple of podcasts, I talked about how to get a mentor, how to pick a mentor, how to get it, and once you find a person that can teach you, or it doesn't have to be a mentor. It just if you're reading good books, if you're listening to good podcasts or whatever, this is the part where you apply what you learn. The most successful people apply what they learn, and they maintain a sense of urgency when executing. And, nowadays, people on social media, they brag about how many masterminds they're attended, how many books they're reading or they've read, how many podcasts they're listening to or have been interviewed on. But, again, it's that information. What do you do with that? I know people that brag that they read 1 or 2 books a week. And I'm like, okay, it's great if it's a fucking race. But if you are going to learn something, you have to apply the knowledge. And you have to execute on it. Again, if you don't put it into practice, gathering information will not bring you success. Executing on that knowledge with a sense of urgency will. And so I know a lot of folks out there, man, that they attend, masterminds, and they're in this group and that group. They're bragging that they're reading all these books. And again, they don't make any progress on things. The whole key is in executing. And when you execute with a sense of urgency. Sense of urgency is imperative. Once you figure out the concept, you have to execute quickly. There's a big difference between absorbing information and putting what you've learned into practice. Without putting it into action, whatever you're learning will go to waste. So it is important to have a strategy for implementing your learning and how you're going to execute and implement. So what I mean by you have to have a strategy in implementing the things that you're learning is what I do is when I am learning, when I'm in learning mode, whether I'm reading a book or I'm listening to a podcast or whatever, or I'm at a seminar, a summit with the syndicate or whatever, I listen for, I look for information that pertains to my current situation. So for instance, if I want to scale my business, I'm going to read a book about scaling a business. And I'm just not going to glance over the book. I'm going to read it. And as soon as I get to a place where it applies to what I'm doing. So again, when I read a book and I find something that applies to what I'm doing, I stop reading, or I pause the podcast and I take time to let my brain unpack that thought. And then I'll come up with a strategy on how to apply that concept. I just don't continue to read or listen to the podcast until I understand how to apply it. A lot of folks, they highlight their books. It's fine to highlight the book and all sorts of things, but when you highlight stuff, you're saying this is important. So as you are highlighting that thing, stop and go over that concept and unpack it and go, okay, how does this apply to me? How does this apply in my particular situation? How does this apply in my business? How does this apply in my life, in my personal life, in my personal relationships, or whatever? But don't get excited. Oh wow, that was a golden nugget, and then you go on, because you're wasting that golden nugget. I hope you understand this, because it is what separates the winners and the losers. This is what separates the wannabes with the bosses. This is very, very important. It's all in the execution, in the urgency in which you execute that concept. Have you noticed that people who make things happen in this world value and share a similar sense of urgency? It's the winners want to execute. The winners want to execute quickly. They figure out a strategy and they go, okay, I learned this. And they focus on it. They execute with a sense of urgency. The number one problem people face when trying to execute change. So you already made up your mind, right? You have a plan. You're going to change this, or you're going to do that, or whatever. The problem that people have is that they look at the problem, and the problem they have, they look at the problem, of course. But when trying to execute change, you have to create a sense of urgency. You can't just go, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and that and whatever, and not really jump on it. That's the sense of urgency. When you recognize that this concept is teaching you something, and it's going to create a change for you if you execute quickly. That's what I do. When I make a decision, I start executing, and I just go through it like a machine. And I'm just going, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Let's go. I live with a sense of urgency. It's a great habit to acquire, to form a sense of urgency. Because people procrastinate. And then they wonder why they're not successful. In your relationship, if you get a thought or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm thinking about my wife right now. Well, send her a text, tell her you love her right away. Don't do it for later. Just right away. Execute right away. When you think about a business connection or whatever, and go, you know what? It'd be nice if I could reach out to these people and blah blah blah. Go ahead, do it right away. Stop what you're doing. That's what differentiates, the winners from the losers. This is so important. Without a sense of urgency, you don't gain any momentum. You're stagnant. You become stale. and you eventually quit. Whether it is, your diet or your exercise plan or your business plan or whatever it is, you have to create a sense of urgency to gain momentum. Once you gain momentum, then things are easier. If you don't execute with a sense of urgency, you're not going to gain momentum, and it's going to be harder, and you're going to quit again. If you don't have a sense of urgency, you're not committed. I'm going to repeat that again. If you don't have a sense of urgency, you are not committed to whatever it is that you committed to. To keep the sense of urgency, you have to build triggers that will remind you of your goal and your purpose, and fire up that sense of urgency over and over. One of my triggers is, I told you this before, I audit my time. I audit my actions, and I'm going, okay, what am I doing? Is this getting me to where I want to go? Yes or no? It's not a freaking complicated question. Am I doing the right activity? Yes or no? If it's not, then I'll stop, and then I'll refocus, and then I'll start going at it with a vengeance. I catch myself sometimes surfing on the news. I'm going, I'm going to take a mental break. And I'm like, no, hold on a second. What are you doing? What can you do that is a mental break and still keep you on track? Okay, well, I'm going to make the phone call that I wanted to make later on this afternoon. I'm going to do it right now because I feel a little distracted. And so I'm going to do it right this second. So that's kind of a mental break. Instead of going to Fox News or whatever, just to waste time, or grab your phone and go on Instagram and start watching videos and all sorts of things. And then an hour goes by and you're like, what the hell happened? So stay aware of what you're doing. Stay aware of your goals. Stay present. I know it sounds simple, but it is. It's all about discipline. You have to teach yourself how to be disciplined, how to stay on course. It is not easy, but it will move you, propel you very fast. You will get to the promised land a lot quicker than if you are procrastinating. I audit my time, I audit my actions, and if I'm not doing the right thing, then again, I stop, and then I regain my sense of urgency, and I get back on track. So practice that. Practice that. When you're doing something, when you move that mouse over to your browser, go, hey, hold on a second. What am I doing? Try to build those triggers. What am I doing? Where am I going? Is this part of what I'm supposed to be doing? Anyway, so successful people set themselves apart from the rest because they maintain a higher level of urgency. They want to execute that task. They want to finish that task as soon as possible and move on to the next step in the plan. They're hungry to get some wins. And you get those wins by executing with a sense of urgency. Again, we're talking about momentum. Having those little small wins build up. You get more confident and you're willing to take on bigger things. So it is imperative that you look at whatever it is that you're doing, and if it's the right thing, execute that with a sense of urgency. There's having a sense of urgency should be an integral part of you. Like how do you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a good person, as an honest person? Then one of those descriptions should be, I have a sense of urgency. Just like however you describe yourself, there has to be one of those descriptions of you. You ask my wife, and they're like, one of her words will be that I'm always, trying to get stuff done. It's a good thing. Sometimes, most of the time, but sometimes I drive her crazy because we're opposite. And she's like, "What's the hurry? What's the hurry?" I'm like, "I just want to get it done." So for me, like on the weekends, it's I want to pray the rosary. We do a family rosary, and on the weekends, I just want to get it done as soon as possible. So then I that's out of my plate. I won't forget it. It won't be 8 o'clock, and we're like, "Oh, you're tired. You had a big meal and all sorts of things, and had a lot of fun." And then now you're in relaxed mode, and he's like, "Okay, we got to pray the rosary." It's like, oh my God. And so for me, it's like, let's get it done. Let's get it done. It's not a task, but it's something that I need to do, and I want to do it as soon as possible. Like this yesterday, Memorial Day, I finished producing a lavender towelette on Saturday night, and I promised myself that I would come in on Monday, Memorial Day, and I was going to do 5 hours of work, and I was going to be home for barbecue and all that stuff. And so I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and did my things. Came home around noon, around 1 o'clock, but I got so much done. And my children, they're on vacation, summer vacation, so they get up a little later or whatever. So I don't miss too much family time because I have that sense of urgency. I want to get it done. I want to get it done as soon as possible. And if I don't want to miss family time, then I'll do it early in the morning. And so my family doesn't get affected at all. So you have to have the strategy to execute the right task with a sense of urgency. There's I know some folks that they say, well, I have a lot of energy, and they're running around bouncing off the walls and all that stuff, and they think they're executing things with a sense of urgency, but they're creating chaos. There is a difference between false urgency and true urgency. You have to be able to distinguish between false urgency and true urgency. So false urgency will have you pretend you're super busy because you're involved in an unproductive flurry of behavior that only creates anxiety and anger, and it takes you nowhere. It's like the soldiers have a saying that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I'm paraphrasing, but that's how it is. So you take your time, you get smooth, and because you're executing without too much of a pause, you're fast. There's folks that are running around pretending they're busy, and they're just creating chaos, uncertainty, and frustrating people. That is the false sense of urgency. The true urgency is different. Is you have the plan, and you're using your intellect to drive and direct your emotions. It's laser focused and expressed in daily routines and behaviors that move you relentlessly towards your goal. True urgency is being alert to changing conditions and weeding out unnecessary activities. That's what true urgency is. It's having a plan and using your intellect to drive and direct your emotions and your actions. You're laser focused. You're laser focused. And you're executing with urgency. You're getting ahead. Urgency creates, it shortens the time that we take you to get things done, because you're laser focused and you're doing it pretty quickly. So behave with urgency every single day. But again, you have to be smart. Don't create chaos and think that you have a sense of urgency. Have a plan and execute the plan. And as you're executing that plan, check yourself. Am I doing the right thing? Yes, no. Is this the right activity? Yes, no. And go on. So my friends, this is a really key point. And again, I'm not BSing you or anything like that, but this is one of the things that sets the winners apart. Don't just gather information. When you're learn with a purpose. If you're listening to a podcast or you're reading a book, my goodness, you got time to pause and unpack that thought, that golden nugget that is going to, shorten the time for your success. You have to respect the information, the good information, respect it and apply it. So don't try to be like those guys out there, those fakes that, I read 3 books this week or 2 books last week, or I read 5,500 books or whatever the hell. I'm listening to podcasts. Less is more. And when you really let your mind understand those concepts, again, take the time to unpack that thought, the concept, and then say to yourself, how am I going to execute this? How am I going to apply it in my life or my business or whatever it is? But you have to ask those questions. You got to look at the concept, try to understand it, and then go, okay, I love it. This works for me. How am I going to apply it? And then execute with urgency. Stop reading the book, pause that podcast or whatever, and then go execute. All right, my friends, this is all I have for this particular podcast. If you found value in the podcast, share it with your family and friends, and make sure you rate it. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at MAGPatriot. And if you have questions, email me at Miguel@godfatherchronicles.com. This podcast is sponsored by naturalchoicecompany.com. Unlock your health. Thank you very much. God bless. And go execute with a sense of urgency.